Big Blue IBM is officially ending its 32-year presence in China. On February 28th, the company sent out an email announcing its exit without much of a farewell. According to Chinese media, IBM issued an internal notice stating that IBM China Investment Company and its subsidiaries will cease operations starting March 1st, 2025. Offices are shutting down immediately, and employees are already packing up desks, chairs, and computers. Last August, IBM announced that it would move its China System Labs research and development work to other IBM facilities overseas. The company has been gradually pulling all of its R&D operations out of China. Right now, IBM's Beijing office is dismantling its equipment. An unnamed employee revealed that the company had around 1,800 workers in cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Dalian, mainly focusing on research and testing. However, all but 200 were laid off last year, and most of the remaining employees have already left in early 2025. Only a few have yet to sign their exit agreements. IBM China Investment Company was registered in 1992, and 8 years later, IBM China was formally established. It was IBM's first wholly owned subsidiary in China, overseeing R&D operations across the mainland. In the early 2000s, working at IBM was seen as a prestigious opportunity in China. However, financial reports show that in 2023, IBM's revenue in China dropped by 19.6%, making it one of the biggest factors dragging down the company's overall growth in the Asia-Pacific region. In the first half of 2024, IBM's revenue in China continued to decline by another 5%, even as its global revenue inched up by 1%. Financial expert Si Ling believes IBM's departure is another sign of China's worsening business environment. He pointed out that foreign companies face harsher conditions in China than what is reported in the media. He also linked IBM's exit to the outcome of the U.S. presidential election, saying that the new U.S. administration is expected to tighten trade restrictions on China, particularly in high-tech sectors like semiconductors. With rising geopolitical tensions, many Western giants are scaling back their operations in China. Independent commentator Gong Zishen described IBM's decision as part of a broader historical trend, shaped by Cold War-style tensions. He said,
这就是在历史大趋势之下，
Everyone has to make their own choices, go with the flow and thrive, or resist and perish.
Businessman Zhang Shengqi told Radio Free Asia that this situation highlights the growing challenges for foreign businesses in China. He explained that with the rise of domestic Chinese companies, foreign firms are struggling to compete and adapt to market changes. Global supply chain shifts and geopolitical conflicts, especially the tense U.S.-China relationship, are forcing multinational companies to rethink their global strategies and reduce their reliance on China. Zhang also warned that IBM's move could shake investor confidence, potentially slowing down foreign investment in China. In its official statement, IBM emphasized that IBM China Limited remains its primary business entity in China. The company said it is consolidating its product development functions globally, and that IBM China Investment Company had fulfilled its original purpose, so now it's being closed. IBM also stated that the shutdown process would follow local regulations. While IBM insists it is not completely leaving the Chinese market, its shift in its business structure makes it clear that staying in China long-term is no longer a priority. The impact of IBM's exit on China's IT industry could be significant. Besides IBM, other foreign companies like Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, and Cisco are either cutting jobs or pulling out of China. Mercedes-Benz, which has about 5,000 employees in China, is laying off 10 to 15% of its staff, primarily in its sales and finance subsidiaries. The layoffs have been ongoing for some time and have intensified since February. Porsche is also reducing its workforce in China, cutting 10% of full-time employees and 30% of contract workers. A spokesperson for BMW stated that the company did not renew contracts for 2 to 5% of its employees in China in 2024, and similar plans are in place for 2025. This reflects the significant challenges in China's automotive market. One of BMW's largest global production hubs, the BMW Brilliance Shenyang plant, employs nearly 26,000 people and works with about 430 local suppliers. It has been the largest taxpayer in Shenyang for 17 consecutive years. Cisco, a major American tech company, laid off 300 workers at its Dalian factory last year, offering severance packages of either N+7 or N+5, meaning the basic severance package plus 7 or 5 months' worth of salary. Volkswagen Group plans to shut down its factory in Nanjing, which produces Passat and Skoda vehicles, as early as this year. Toyota subsidiary Hino Motors announced last year that it would stop producing diesel engines in China. Its Shanghai Hino engine company will cease operations on September 30th, 2024. Japanese imaging company Konica Minolta is set to close its Wuxi factory this year, cutting more than 1,300 jobs. Swiss company Liebherr announced last year that it was shutting down its concrete business operations in Suzhou. Kingland, an American tech firm, dissolved its software company in Dalian last year, laying off more than 160 employees. Meanwhile, Microsoft relocated its entire AI research team from China to the US. Many other foreign companies are quietly packing up and leaving. The exodus is accelerating, signaling an unprecedented capital flight crisis for China's economy. In 2024, China's net foreign direct investment (FDI) outflow reached a record-breaking $168.4 billion, the highest since records began in 1990. At the same time, foreign investment in China was only $4.5 billion, the lowest since 1992. Over the past 3 years, China's FDI has plummeted by 99%. This reflects the deep collapse in foreign investors' confidence in the Chinese market. At the same time, Chinese companies are also aggressively moving capital overseas. In 2024 alone, China's outbound investment reached $172.8 billion, further worsening the capital drain. With both foreign firms leaving and domestic capital flowing out, China's economy is under severe pressure, turning its investment landscape into what some call a capital escape zone. The reasons behind this crisis go beyond Beijing's strict regulatory policies, slowing economic growth, and a deteriorating business environment. There's also growing international distrust in China's economic policies, compounded by Trump's return to the White House and his intensified trade sanctions against China. In such a hostile and high-risk market, foreign investors are unwilling to take chances. As mentioned earlier, IBM recently shut down its investment company in China. Financial analyst Zi Ling believes Trump's administration is accelerating the decoupling from China of global supply chains. With a new 10% tariff on Chinese goods taking effect on March, raising total tariffs to 20%, companies are already making moves to avoid these trade barriers. He pointed to TSMC's recent decision to invest over $100 billion in U.S. factories as a sign that businesses are shifting away from China at an increasing pace. Last month, after the Trump administration imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese goods, it announced an additional 10% tariff, citing issues like China's production of fentanyl. The new tariffs took effect just 1 day before China's annual legislative meetings began. In response, China's Ministry of Commerce declared that it would take all necessary countermeasures. However, with China's economy struggling and expected to worsen in 2025, Beijing might not have the capacity to mount an effective retaliation. When the U.S.-China trade war first began in 2018, China's legislative meetings had just ended, leaving Beijing somewhat unprepared. But this time, Trump's tariff hammer landed right before the meetings even started, making it the central topic of discussion. Some analysts believe that the trade war, which officially reignited on March 1st, will play a significant role in shaping the future of U.S.-China competition in the 21st century. China was in a much stronger economic position when the first trade war broke out. At that time, the COVID-19 pandemic had yet to emerge. By early 2020, both sides reached a Phase 1 trade agreement. But, just as the deal was signed, Wuhan went into lockdown, and the trade war faded into the background. Now, however, China's economy is in far worse shape. When China fully reopened at the end of 2022, there were expectations of a quick economic rebound, but things did not go as planned. Instead of recovering, the economy took a sharp downturn in 2023. By mid-year, exports and imports had plunged, consumer spending remained weak, deflation set in, housing prices dropped rapidly, and unemployment began to rise. Things only got worse in 2024. Unemployment, once mainly affecting young people, started to spread to the middle class. With foreign companies leaving and foreign investments declining, middle-class workers faced increasing financial pressure. Since they are a key driver of consumer spending, their struggles pose a major risk to China's economy. At the same time, rising joblessness has led to growing social unrest, with an increase in violent incidents carried out by people lashing out in desperation. Now, just 2 months into 2025, there are no signs of these economic problems being resolved. If anything, conditions are expected to worsen. Trump has another tariff measure in play. On February 28th, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated that Mexico is planning to impose a 20% tariff on Chinese goods exported through its borders, matching the U.S. tariff rate. In recent years, many Chinese companies have moved production to third countries to bypass U.S. trade restrictions, but now they are also becoming targets of Trump's trade policies. In response, Beijing announced that starting March 10th, it will impose new tariffs on certain U.S. goods. This includes a 15% tariff on American chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton, as well as a 10% tariff on sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, seafood, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. Other American imports will also face additional duties on top of existing tariffs. Commenting on this development, U.S. economist David J. Huang noted that instead of compromising on the fentanyl issue, Beijing chose to retaliate with tariffs. This could quickly escalate the trade war, posing economic risks for both countries. He believes that China is in a far weaker position, as it faces both domestic and external challenges that are more severe than those in the U.S. According to Huang, Beijing's top priority is political stability, followed by economic development. He sees two possible outcomes. One scenario is de-escalation, where high-level negotiations lead to a deal similar to the Phase 1 agreement in 2020. In this case, China might agree to crack down on fentanyl production and purchase more American goods, while the U.S. could pause further tariff increases. However, Trump does not appear to be in a hurry to negotiate. The second possible outcome is a full-scale escalation of the tariff war and a complete decoupling between the U.S. and China. If trade tensions spiral out of control, both sides could suffer severe economic consequences. U.S.-China trade could collapse, supply chains would need to be completely reorganized, and even the U.S. GDP might take a hit, dropping by 0.5 to 1%. However, China could be in a far worse position. This would be a devastating blow to its already struggling economy. Ultimately, the final outcome depends on how much economic pressure each side can withstand. Huang predicts that since China accounts for more than 20% of global manufacturing and the U.S. represents around 30% of global consumer demand, a trade war between the world's largest producer and its biggest consumer will inevitably lead to a major supply chain shift. This is already becoming reality. The U.S. is trying to free itself from the Russia-Ukraine conflict so it could focus more on the Asia-Pacific region, particularly on countering the Chinese Communist Party. Washington now sees Beijing as its top strategic threat. Meanwhile, China is facing serious domestic and international challenges, making this year's legislative meetings some of the most difficult in its history. Right now, China's annual legislative meetings are underway. But beyond Trump's tariffs, Xi Jinping's government is also dealing with a series of other crises. Columnist Gu Cheng wrote that 2025 is shaping up to be the toughest job market China has ever seen, with as much as 400 million people expected to be in flexible employment, a term often used to describe precarious gig work. The number of college graduates in China's 2025 class is projected to reach a record 12.2 million, an increase of 430,000 from the previous year. The job market is already under immense pressure. According to a South China Morning Post article published on February 26, the number of people in flexible employment could reach 400 million by 2036. Meanwhile, China is facing a surge in infectious diseases. Beijing has become a high-risk zone, with waves of outbreaks across the country since the start of 2025. Various viruses, including influenza A, norovirus, and avian flu, are spreading rapidly. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and crematoriums are operating at full capacity. People are sharing shocking accounts of infections and deaths on social media, but the government continues to downplay the severity of the situation. Authorities refuse to release data on severe cases or deaths, and even mentioning COVID-19 is strictly off-limits. Videos circulating online show Chinese citizens digging graves and preparing coffins, while crowds gather in mourning. Politically, rumors of Xi Jinping losing power continue to spread. Since the Chinese Communist Party's third plenum last July, speculation has been rampant that Xi's control over the military and government is weakening. The investigation of Miao Hua, a high-ranking military official, is seen as a major sign of Xi losing influence over the armed forces. On top of tariffs, Trump's efforts to strengthen ties with Russia have become another source of anxiety for Beijing. The so-called unlimited partnership between China and Russia, as described by the Chinese Communist Party, is now facing a serious test under Trump's second term. Amid negotiations between the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Russia, China's foreign minister made a rare statement agreeing with the U.S. and Russian views on a ceasefire in Ukraine. Even well-known Chinese commentators like Hu Xijing and Jing Canrong have acknowledged that Trump is attempting to reshape the global order, divide China and Russia, and form a U.S.-Russia alliance against Beijing. On February 24th, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin held a phone call, an indication of Xi Jinping's deep concerns that Russia could be drawn closer to the U.S. Beyond the geopolitical tensions discussed by Gu Cheng, another major economic crisis is unfolding in China: the collapse of private enterprises. China's economy relies not only on state-owned enterprises and foreign firms, but also on private businesses, which play a crucial role in job creation. Some private companies have already been severely weakened due to foreign investment withdrawals and supply chain shifts. However, others are struggling under heavy government crackdowns, especially in the tech sector. Meanwhile, the real estate industry has also seen major financial collapses. Over the past decade, the CCP's strict regulations have severely impacted private businesses. The government launched antitrust investigations into Alibaba and Tencent, imposed cybersecurity reviews on ride-hailing service Didi, and implemented the double reduction policy in the education sector, which led to the collapse of tutoring companies. Many small and medium-sized enterprises have been unable to survive due to difficulties in securing financing and the unpredictability of government policies. At the same time, real estate giants like Evergrande and Country Garden have defaulted on massive debts. Facing this crisis, the CCP is now trying to hold on to what may be its last lifeline. On February 17th, Xi Jinping hosted a meeting with private business leaders, with Alibaba founder Jack Ma making a rare public appearance. Shortly afterward, the CCP state-run media, Xinhua News Agency, published a lengthy report praising Xi's support for private enterprises, claiming that he has always supported private businesses. However, independent commentator Cai Shen-kun dismissed this as mere rhetoric. Speaking on his media platform, he argued that Ma's attendance does not signal any fundamental policy shift. With China's economy deteriorating, further crackdowns on private businesses could only deepen the crisis and even threaten Xi's grip on power. Cai said, Xi has no choice but to lower himself and try to win back private entrepreneurs, hoping they can help rescue the economy and prevent the regime from falling into an even deeper crisis. He also pointed out that Xi's latest promises to private enterprises mirror past empty reassurances. Cai said, if Xi truly supported private businesses, why hasn't he reversed the case against Chinese billionaire Sun Da-wu, released his family, and returned their assets? That would help restore some confidence, but there's no sign of it happening. He added that even if Beijing were to rehabilitate Sun Da-wu, it would do little to repair the deep trust deficit built up over the years. Cai warned that private entrepreneurs should learn from Sun Da-wu's downfall, which was not an isolated incident but part of a broader economic crisis. Cai further elaborated, Xi is steering China back toward a Mao-era planned economy, where state-owned enterprises have absolute control and private enterprises are sacrificed. This is the nature of the CCP.